I got home 45 minutes early, which in our house counts as a plot twist. The sun was still high enough to draw pale gold bars across the driveway and pretend everything inside those walls was tidy and warm. My name is Stephen, and my job is to find numbers that lie for a living. It's amazing how often the habit comes in handy at the front door. I unlock the deadbolt like a man defusing a bomb, slow, quiet, deliberate, because the house wasn't doing its usual hum. No dishwasher, no TV, no background podcast about a serial killer Emily would never finish. Instead, a voice floated from the living room. Then another. Not a TV. The rhythm was wrong for television. It had the choppy, breath-sharing tempo of people talking on a speakerphone and forgetting the world has ears. I set my keys into the bowl so gently the ceramic didn't ping. From the hall, I could see the corner of the coffee table and a slice of the couch. Emily sat just out of view, the light from her screen splashing a square on the rug. A trio of women was conducting what sounded like a fire drill for the emotionally bored. "Just tell him you're not sure you're happy," a sharp voice said, crisp as a paper cut. "Don't cry. Crying ruins the effect." That one had the cadence of a woman who had donated 2 wedding rings to the resale market and wanted company at the bar. I'd meet her later by name, Monica. But for the moment she was just the hiss in gasoline. A second voice, smooth like YouTube self-help with a ring light, cooed, "You need to start with 'I've been thinking' and then leave a 3-second pause. 3 beats. He'll project whatever is already scaring him. It's psychology." Rachel, I'd later learn, loved the word psychology the way teenagers love the word freedom, loudly and without a manual. The third one laughed, not just a laugh, the helium float of someone who treats life like a never-ending outtake reel. "Oh my God," she squealed. "I wish I could see his face. Please, Em, just, prop the phone somewhere? For research." Brittany. Of course it was Brittany. Emily's voice sat in the middle, careful and light, as if nothing weighed more than 2 ounces in her world. "I don't want to hurt him," she said, which is something people generally say right before they pick up a sledgehammer. I need to know if he'll fight for me." "And if he doesn't," Monica said, "then you've got your answer. Men only appreciate a good thing when it's trying to leave." "Remember," Rachel chimed in, "no hysterics." Poise. The pause matters. "Seriously, put the phone where we can see," Brittany added, such a helpful scientist. "This is like citizen science. You'd think coming home early would be a romantic comedy beat. Surprise! Instead, I got dress rehearsal. I stood there for a full minute and let them write my marriage with bullet points and breathy certainty. I watched a tiny crack travel across the glass called benefit of the doubt. Then I did the least cinematic thing in the world. I stepped back to the entry, lifted my keys, and dropped them into the bowl with a nice, honest clink. The call ended so fast you'd think the phone had burned her hand. "Hey!" Emily popped up from the couch with a smile a half-second late to its own party. She smelled like mint tea and the kind of lip balm you fish out of a tote. "You're early." "Quarterly call wrapped," I said, leaning in to kiss her temple like nothing at all was on fire. "How's your day?" "Meetings," she said. "Headache? Nothing new?" She said it the way you say weather continues to be weather. I answered, because is a useful syllable when you're cataloging the exact location of a minefield. I went upstairs to wash my hands and looked at the water beating over my knuckles, the way it does when you've already decided something and your body is just catching up with the minutes. People imagine fury is a drum solo. Mine sounded like a metronome. Anger burns, clarity files. There's a map of the Texas Hill Country above my desk, a cheap print we framed to look like we own taste. I took it down, reached behind for the flat fireproof pouch where sensible people keep grown-up things. Passports, insurance summaries, copies of deeds, and slid out a sheet titled, "In my handwriting, if we ever need to be adults fast." The list had started as a joke the first time she changed a password, and said she didn't remember it 2 hours later. Jokes go blunt when you never sharpen them back into trust. I added 2 lines in neat block letters. Hotel, reserve a downtown room for 7 days. Consultation, call family attorney, ask for Tuesday slot. I wasn't staging revenge. I was drawing lines on a whiteboard so that when the chaos showed up with its bag of tricks, it couldn't say I never gave it a map. Downstairs, Emily had migrated to the patio with her phone, pretending to check the weather on a perfectly visible sky. The evening did its thing. Jars of light across the fence, neighbors being neighbors. We ate takeout bowls on the back steps because plates felt like a commitment to the bit where we're happily married and share silverware. She scrolled through something that required the full range of her face while I mentioned a weekend hike we'd never taken. It got the kind of non-answer you give a cashier who asks if you found everything you were looking for. Maybe, she said. I might have plans. And then the names poured like sales copy. Monica, Rachel, and Brittany. My favorite symposium on applied theater. I nodded. I let the names take their seats around us. You can learn a lot from who people let into the committee meeting in their heads. We ended up back in the living room. A show about rich people pretending not to be messy, murmuring at half volume. Emily dropped onto the couch and set her phone face down with the moral gravity of someone shelving a dangerous weapon. I sat across from her and took the chair like a man who knows where the light hits his jaw just right. If I was going to be watched, we might as well give the front row a clean angle. You good? I asked. 2 words. A universal key you can turn in any lock. She blinked. The blink said I was early for the scene change. I'm just tired, she replied. Tired is such a flexible word. It can mean I didn't nap or I don't want to be honest. Tonight it meant please don't open the cabinet where I've stacked tonight's props. Sure. I stood, kissed the top of her head, and went to my office. I answered emails I didn't need to answer, then shut the laptop and let the hum of the house settle around me like a heavy coat. That's what clarity feels like. Wait, but in the right place. Around 10, Emily showed up in the doorway. Backlight from the hall drew a thin halo around her. Emily is beautiful in the way magazine ads promise a moisturizer can make you, if you also give it good bones and half a decade. Tonight, her face wore the exam look. Pupils out hunting for tells, mouth relaxed, shoulders square. She was measuring turbulence. Will you be up late? She asked casually, like asking a stranger if the seat is taken. Not long, I said. Finish a couple notes. She lingered as if waiting for me to volunteer a confession. Darling, I overheard your audition and I'd give you a call back, but the plot needs work. When I didn't, she nodded like we'd both passed and drifted off to bed, phone hovering near her like a trained bird. I slept the way you sleep on airplanes. Not exactly rest, more like holding still while the future moves you somewhere. Morning brought a polite sky and the local station mumbling traffic lies about Mopac. Emily came downstairs in a crisp blouse I hadn't seen in months and the perfume that says we could have a second coffee if you ask nicely. I told her she looked great because it was true and because truth can coexist with outrage without exploding. She smiled like she wanted to hear more and didn't at the same time. I laced up for a run. On the turn, looking back at the city, I felt something that wasn't anger and wasn't grief settle into place, like a beam finally meeting a post. This was going to hurt, but cleanly. Back home, I showered, dressed, and drove to work with the radio off. You can hear your life better without a soundtrack. Somewhere between the garage and the elevator, my phone buzzed with a reminder I didn't remember setting. Tonight, be present. Last night, me had a sense of humor. Daytime work has a way of squeezing domestic nonsense into a smaller jar. I did the calls, answered the emails, smiled at the person who brings cupcakes for no reason. By the time the evening swung back around, the house had a clean, empty sound. Dinner started normal enough. Plates, forks, condensation sweating down a glass. The TV stayed off because silence has better acoustics for truth. Emily sat with her hands folded like a schoolteacher who still thinks authority is a shape your fingers can make. I matched her posture with none of the faith. She took a breath longer than normal. There it was, the 3-beat pause Rachel had prescribed. Right on schedule. If she'd had a headset, she'd have touched it. "I've been thinking," she began. "You could have placed the line on a conference room slide deck." I almost smiled, not because it was funny, but because it was accurate. I didn't save her with a question. I let the sentence land and waited like a man letting a soufflé decide if it's committed to being food. "I'm not sure I'm happy," Emily said. "I think I need some space." The words were carefully ironed to look natural. I set my glass down where the water ring already was. "What does space mean?" I asked. "In practice." Her eyes flickered. Scripts never include logistics. "Less pressure, some time with the girls, maybe a weekend, I don't know yet." "The girls," I repeated, like identifying suspects in a lineup. "Monica, Rachel, Brittany." She flinched a millimeter. "You know them." "I know of them," I said. "They're very participatory." On the table, her phone, face down of course, lit up from beneath like a nightlight. A soft cluster of sound leaked from the mic, a gasp disguised as a cough. It's a fascinating thing, watching people attempt covert theater with a prop that glows. "Are you asking for a trial separation?" I said evenly. "Or an evaluation period? Two different structures." "You sound like a spreadsheet," she snapped, then picked a tone that tried to sound wounded and landed on rehearsed. "I just need to know you'll fight for me." "I care about you," I said. "Fighting requires an opponent." I raised my eyebrows a fraction. "Are you planning to be one?" The silence that followed wasn't empty. It had weight, shape, the way a closed door does. Somewhere near her knee, the phone pulsed again, the heartbeat of a hidden audience. I looked at Emily's face, the way you look at a painting you loved in college, and suddenly realized was mostly impressive lighting. I could have weaponized everything I'd heard the day before. I didn't. I prefer clean exits to messy victories. "Okay," she said briskly, shifting to the next cue. "Maybe we do a short separation. A week, no expectations. We check in at the end." I nodded like we were planning a work project. "Let's see how it all ends." I glanced at the phone. It was the kind of glance that says, "I see the magician palming the card, and I'm bored." Emily's jaw tightened. Her shoulders did the smallest rise and fall of someone who just found the stairs behind a painted door. She folded her napkin, unfolded it, folded it again. "Can we talk more tomorrow?" she asked finally. "I'm tired." "Tomorrow works," I said. 9 p.m. She nodded, then stood to carry her plate to the sink like we were still pretending the ritual cleans the sin. I followed with mine, rinsed it, slid it into the dishwasher, and shut the door with the kind of precise click that sounds like restraint. The house settled around us, solemn and bright, the way theaters feel just before the curtain climbs. If Emily was going to put on a show tomorrow, I would be there, center seat, not clapping for tricks. I didn't know yet whether the audience would attend, but I knew this. If they did, I was done, letting them whisper in the dark. I slept well, which is either a sign of maturity or evidence that I am now a man who finds comfort in pre-aligned spreadsheets. Either way, morning would bring its coffee and its pen and its list. Night would bring its conversation. And if the committee wanted to sit in the rafters and watch their experiment bloom, I'd be happy to turn on the house lights. After all, the only thing tests hate more than wrong answers is transparency. Dinner had the kind of silence you can chew. Forks made small scratches against the plates, glasses left rings on the wood, and every sound carried the weight of a conversation we weren't having. Emily sat opposite me, posture perfect, hands folded like she'd practiced in front of a mirror. She wasn't eating so much as repositioning food into new quadrants. Her phone lay on the table, face down, glowing faintly from underneath with each vibration, like a buried firefly. My phone was lying nearby because I was prepared for what was to come and decided to record everything. I could hear it before I could see it. The muffled cadence of someone trying to be quiet while still existing. A laugh, clipped. A whisper, swallowed. The jury was in session. Emily cleared her throat just a little too loud, as if to reset the air. "I've been thinking," she began, and there it was. The line, the cue, Rachel's recommended opener. I leaned back, folded my arms, and let it ride. "I'm not sure I'm happy," she continued. A beat, a pause, 3 counts. I could practically see the teleprompter scroll in her pupils. "I feel like I need some space. Maybe a break would be healthy." Healthy. Such a pretty word for distance, like calling a knife sleek. I set down my glass. "What does space mean exactly? Be practical." Emily faltered, just a blink too long. "Less pressure, some nights to myself. Maybe a weekend with the girls." "The girls," I repeated. "Monica, Rachel, Brittany." Her fork clinked. She smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "Yes, them." The phone buzzed again, a faint chorus of approval. I could almost hear Brittany giggle on the other end. I nodded slowly. "So, is this a trial separation, or just a test run for drama class?" "Don't make it sound ridiculous," Emily snapped. "I'm trying to be honest." "No," I said, calm as ever. "You're trying to perform honesty." Her eyes narrowed, but before she could fire back, the phone betrayed her again. Buzz, glow, a muffled snort from the other side of the digital curtain. I reached across the table, picked it up, and without asking permission, flipped it face up. 3 names glowed like stage lights. Monica, Rachel, Brittany, group call, all connected, all listening. Emily froze, hand hovering in midair, like maybe she could snatch the moment back if she just moved fast enough. I tapped the speaker button. "Evening, ladies," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried. "Since you're already attending this little performance, let's make it official." The silence on the other end lasted a full heartbeat before Monica broke it, sharp as ever. "Well, someone had to say it. She's not happy. And honestly, Stephen, you sound cold even now. No wonder she doubts you." Ah, Monica, the high priestess of bitterness. I could almost see the wine glass in her hand. Rachel cut in, softer, with that faux therapist tone. "We're only trying to help her understand what she feels. It's not about you, it's about clarity. Every couple needs honesty." "Honesty," I repeated. "Like staging a breakup scene for a live studio audience?" Rachel stammered, searching for her script. Then Brittany giggled, unable to contain herself. "Oh my God, Stephen, don't be mad. This was hilarious. I mean, come on. I wanted to see your face when she dropped the line." She laughed again, high-pitched like nails on a balloon. I let the sound hang in the air for a full 5 seconds before answering. "Emily, do you hear this? To them, your marriage is a comedy special." Her cheeks flushed crimson. "That's not fair. They're just what?" I leaned forward. "Your support group? Your directors? Or your audience?" The speaker crackled. Monica again, defensive now. "Don't twist this, Stephen. If you showed her affection, if you weren't so damn detached, she wouldn't need to test you." "Detached," I echoed, like tasting a flavor I hadn't ordered. "Yes, because nothing says intimacy like bringing in a 3-woman focus group to evaluate your husband's reactions." Rachel tried to salvage the wreckage. "Stephen, you're being hostile. This was meant to empower her." "Empower her to what? Betray her own vows? Record my face when she says she's unhappy?" I shot back. "Tell me, Rachel, do you empower your own husband like this? Or just other people's?" The pause was telling. Even over speakerphone, guilt breathes loud. Then Brittany, still not getting the memo, chirped, "Okay, but seriously, can we not act like this is some crime? It's just a little test. Lighten up." I smiled, small, dangerous. "You wanted a reaction. Here it is. I don't play games. And if you think this is a comedy, I promise the punchline won't be what you expect. Emily tried to interject, but her voice cracked. "Stephen, please, don't do this." "Oh, I'm doing exactly what you asked for," I said. "You wanted to see how I'd react. I'm reacting with light, with clarity, with all your little helpers here in the room." The line went quiet, except for the sound of Monica muttering a curse under her breath. I stood, placed the phone back on the table between us like evidence, and looked directly at Emily. "You're free to want space. You're free to be confused. But you're not free to turn our marriage into a group project for bored friends." She blinked rapidly, caught between anger and shame. Her hands tightened on the napkin until it tore. The jury on the line stayed silent now, finally realizing the show was over. I reached over, tapped the red button, and ended the call. The room grew instantly bigger, like someone had opened a window. Emily exhaled shakily, her voice tiny. I didn't think—" "No," I cut in. "You didn't. Or maybe you did, and you thought humiliation would be entertaining. Either way, now you know." I pushed my chair back, calm as a man finishing coffee. "You wanted a test? Congratulations. You failed it." And with that I stood, left my plate where it was, and walked out to the patio, letting the night air wash over me like a verdict. The night air cooled me better than any drink. Inside, Emily sat in silence. Phone dark now, napkin torn like her script. I let her stew in it. There was nothing left to say that evening. The next morning, I was up before her. The kitchen smelled of coffee, and the folder on the counter looked out of place in its crispness. I'd spent the last few hours making sure every line was in order, division of assets, bank accounts. When Emily came down, hair still tangled from sleep, she froze at the sight of it. "What's this?" she asked, voice already wobbling. "Documents," I said, sliding the folder toward her. "Divorce. Everything's filled out. All you need to do is read and sign." Her laugh was too sharp, a defense more than humor. "You can't be serious. Stephen, last night it was a mistake, a stupid stunt. You had your committee," I cut in. "Your trial, your performance. That was serious enough for me." Her eyes darted to the folder, then back to me. "But we can fix this. Counseling, space, anything." I shook my head. "Respect doesn't need rehearsal. Trust doesn't survive auditions. You don't test a marriage, you either live it or you don't." She pressed her palms flat on the counter as if she could push the papers back to me by sheer will. "It was just, I wanted to know you cared. And now you know," I said evenly. "I care about my dignity more than I care about being someone's lab rat." Her lip trembled. "So that's it? You're ending everything over one mistake?" "No, Emily," I said, picking up my coffee. "You ended it when you invited 3 spectators into our marriage. I'm just putting it in writing." I left the folder there, beside the sugar jar she never closed properly. Then I walked out the door with my mug in hand, the morning sun catching the edge of the papers like a spotlight. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like an actor in someone else's script. The show was over, the credits had rolled, and I was already halfway out of the theater. A week later, the folder I'd left on the counter had done its work. Emily stalled, cried, argued, but in the end she showed up where real decisions live, a law office with polished wood and no room for monologues. The office smelled like leather and certainty. My attorney, a gray-haired man named Collins, had that calm smile lawyers reserve for clients who finally grew a spine. Across the table sat Emily, hair perfect, makeup deliberate, hands folded like she was about to win a beauty pageant. She started before Collins could even speak. "Stephen, I've thought a lot since that night. I was wrong. I was foolish. I never should have let my friends interfere." Her voice trembled just enough to suggest sincerity, but not enough to smear the mascara. Collins raised one eyebrow at me, silently asking if I wanted to pause. I shook my head. Let the performance continue. Emily leaned closer, tone soft, rehearsed. "We can work this out. Counseling. A clean slate. We've built so much together, it would be a shame to throw it away over one lapse in judgment. Lapse? I echoed flat. Emily, you staged a breakup scene like a high school drama club, with a live audience. Her cheeks flushed. She turned toward Collins, desperate for backup. It was a mistake. He's exaggerating. Collins slid a transcript across the table. My recording of the call. Monica's sharp sarcasm. Rachel's fake therapist tone. Brittany's giggles. Every word preserved like an insect in amber. Emily's face drained. She pressed her lips together so hard the color vanished. You recorded me? No, I said, sipping my water. I recorded them. You were just part of the cast. Collins cleared his throat. Mrs. Holloway, my client isn't here to renegotiate the marriage. He's here to finalize the dissolution. The papers are straightforward. Division of property, accounts and liabilities. You'll find he's been more than fair. Emily's eyes darted between us, panic blooming beneath the mascara. Stephen, please, we can't let this end like this. You'll regret it. You'll feel empty. I set down my glass, calm as ever. No, Emily. I felt empty when you let your friends take notes on our marriage. What I feel now is clarity. Her voice broke into a sharper pitch, the performance slipping. So you're really going to ruin everything we built? Over pride? Over respect, I corrected. Yours died the night you put me on trial in front of Monica, Rachel, and Brittany. This, I tapped the folder, is just the obituary. Silence fell heavy. Even Collins leaned back, giving her space to drown in it. She tried one last line, softer now, eyes wide, the ingenue begging for mercy. I still love you. I stood, collected my copy of the paperwork, and offered her the smallest smile, the kind you give when the play ends and the curtain drops. Then you should have respected me enough not to audition 3 critics. Goodbye, Emily. Collins gathered the documents. Emily stayed frozen in her chair, mascara cracking, hands gripping the table like an anchor. For the first time, there was no script left for her to read. Divorce is quieter than people imagine. No fireworks, no explosions, just paperwork, signatures, and the sound of doors that won't open again. The day the judge stamped the decree, Emily's name slid out of my life as easily as a page torn from a notepad. For me, life got lighter in ways I hadn't expected. Sleep became whole again. Meals tasted sharper. Even the apartment felt bigger, not because of space, but because no one was filling it with rehearsed lines. Friends said I looked 10 years younger. I just felt like a man who'd finally walked off a stage that was never his show. Emily, though, had no such rebirth. Without the performance, she was left with silence. Her committee dissolved fast. Monica tried to turn the whole ordeal into a feminist crusade online, but people noticed the bitterness dripping from every post. Rachel's marriage collapsed quietly once her own husband found the chat logs. And Brittany? She kept posting glittery memes about choosing yourself, but now they only gathered pity likes from distant relatives. Their little council had been so loud in our dining room, now it was just scattered noise, each one reduced to an echo. As for Emily, she stayed in the house for a while, clinging to the rooms that smelled like our old life. Eventually, she sold it. People told me she moved into a small condo, downsized her world, started showing up at yoga studios and wine nights with strangers. Maybe she told them the story in her own version, maybe she didn't. But whatever script she wrote, the audience had grown smaller. I never hated her. Hatred is still a tether, and I wasn't carrying any of those anymore. What I carried was clarity. You don't audition love. You don't test respect. And the moment someone does, the show is already over. The papers were just the credits rolling. And me? I wasn't bitter. I was free.